I guess this is part of that community building that I don't know how I do it as I'm thinking about this now. But it's so important to get them to be fully all in for the event, and as much as possible, leave the outside world behind and say, I'm in this place of unlimited possibility, of unlimited empowerment, of unlimited capability. And there's limits to everything, but we're in a room where we can create together far more than any of us could create on our own. And so the more I can get them to be fully present to what's happening on the stage, but also to each other and what's happening between each other, then the more powerful that event will be. And so that first session that's what it's all about.
Hello, Launch family, and welcome to today's show. Today we have two special, one, I'm joined as always by my co-host, Mr. Jeff Walker.
Hey, folks.
And we have a special guest today, Mr. Dan Walker.
Hey, everybody.
And, Jeff, you kind of called this podcast today. So what the heck are we talking about? We just finished up some cool stuff, right? What do you want to talk about today?
We did. We just came out of a week of events with our highest end clients, and it was just immersive. It was powerful. It was fun. It was exciting. It was moving. And I just thought we'd do a reflection episode, just talk about some of the things we learned, some of the things we experienced, and key takeaways. And since Dan was there for the whole thing, and Chris, you were there for almost the entire thing, I thought this would be a great group to get together and just talk about some of our big takeaways from that week.
Yeah, that sounds awesome. Actually, it was a super cool experience to be a part of. And just so people know what we're talking about as far as an event, this is we had a few things going on. One was the Platinum Plus Mastermind group meeting, right? So one of those meetings, then followed up by the Launch Club Mastermind meeting. And then after that, we had our Launch Club event, which was called LCX, where all of our Launch Club coaching people all came together in one place in Dallas, actually. So that was the context, I guess, for the event. And yeah, I have to echo, it was such a successful and such a fun and insightful event. A lot of great things happened out of it. Well, maybe we should start with, I wasn't actually part of the Plat Plus event, but I'd love to hear maybe from both of you who were part of that event. What are some of the awesome parts of Plat Plus, and maybe what it is, and maybe people share. Yeah, what was that meeting all about?
Yeah, well, just super quick context. So we basically got together. The meeting was Monday and Tuesday. Sunday, we started off with a reception. And we always do a really nice reception for people flying in, because they're flying in from all over the world. Literally, I think we've got people from 5 continents in the group. We've got, if I started to list the countries, I'd forget a bunch. But people from all over the world, all over the US, Canada, Mexico, Europe, all over. And so people are flying in from everywhere. They often come in a full day early. And in fact, a whole group of them had their own informal meeting the day before. Then we start off with a reception on Sunday. Then we go into Monday and Tuesday, where our meetings. It was our 39th time being together with this group. There were some people in the room that have been to all 39 meetings, or at least one person who's been to all 39 meetings. And this is in person. This isn't, Zoom. And so it was super powerful. There's about 35 people there. So most of the group was there. About half the people that joined 13 years ago are still in the group. Back then, people came in, they had businesses of $100,000, $200,000, $300,000. Now, everyone's got multi-million-dollar businesses, many of them 8-figure businesses. We've had people in the room with 9-figure businesses. So 8 figures, you're doing at least $10 million in sales per year. And they're industry leaders. Many of them are not necessarily people you've heard of, because they're in all different kinds of niches, from dog training to tennis to mental health to on and on, knitting. It goes on and on and on. Some of them are in marketing. Some of them are household names that most people will know. One interesting thing is, if you've take a look at the episodes in this podcast, many of the guests, maybe most of the guests, maybe all of the guests so far are from the Plat Plus group. And then if you go into those, like we just had Barry Baumgartner on, and I don't know when this episode's going to get released in relation to hers, but it was an amazing episode. You should definitely check it out. We were talking about high-end offers. But if you follow the threads really closely, you'll hear Barry starts to mention, she just mentions getting help from a few different names. And as it turns out, every one of the names she mentions is another person in Plat Plus. So if you really want to tear apart the DNA of this podcast, this is like me sharing Plat Plus and soon the folks from the Launch Club Mastermind as well.
100%, 100%. Well, I like I said, you guys were part of this. I think that's such a great context for listeners to understand what this room is and what it was like. And I know there is one thing I will say, there's usually like a bit of a cone of silence around these meetings too, right? But I'm sure there are some things you're able to share as far as what is what are some takeaways or what it was like to be in that room this week?
Yeah, I'd love to. And Dan, you can jump in at any point here. One of the biggest takeaways for me every time I get together with a group of really great people, and this goes for the entire week, is that you are the average of the 5 people that you hang out with the most. So, and a lot of times people say that in terms of your income. Your income is the average of the 5 people that you hang out with the most. And I believe that because we are social creatures. If you look through the animal kingdom, there are some creatures that are not social, that are loners, that live alone, but humans are social creatures, even if you're an introvert like me. And so I think if you look at, but I take that bigger, not just income, but your health will be the average of the 5 people you hang out with the most. Your mental health, your relationships, your tennis game, your golf game, whatever it is, you will reflect the people you're around. And so this group is just, they're very accomplished people professionally, but for the most part, they're pretty accomplished in every area of their life. And I think over 13 years, we've seen the group just build each other up. And that's why we've had so much incredible success over time. So, I mean, this is a big meta type of takeaway, but I can never relearn this lesson enough. And so when I go to these meetings, yeah, I'm in front of the room, I'm leading it, I have a lot of extra responsibility. I have to hold the space in the room, I have to create the community of the room. And it also lifts me up because I get to be around amazing people and they become my average that pulls me up.
Yeah, and I think the thing that I think is really interesting too is so like Jeff said, these might not be household names. Some of them for sure are. Some of them are, folks who are really big in kind of the internet marketing world and really known in that world. But the funny, almost little correction to that, I think, is that I think they all are household names, but in their own markets, And the funny thing is they're all, I would say all pretty genius at marketing, genius at building businesses, but that's not necessarily the thing that they teach. One of them, Susan Garrett, she's incredibly accomplished dog trainer. Has won world championships for dog agility. I don't even know how many times, but so many, so many times. And is just period one of the best dog trainers in the entire world, and that's what she's known for publicly. But behind the scenes, she's in this group, even with group of people who would be considered just internet marketing legends, internet marketing gurus. And when she talks about her latest promotions that she's doing or the latest strategies that she's doing, like everybody stops and listens because she's so freaking good at it, even though that's not the thing that she's necessarily known for. I think that's just incredibly cool how these are people who they have, they're really accomplished with they're really accomplished with whatever the thing is that they're known for. And they're also really accomplished in business and in marketing, and in life, really, for the most part.
Yeah, Dan, that's a great distinction. I mean, Susan is a great example. She's someone who was clearly just by the world championships she's had, which she doesn't even keep track of them anymore. There's so many of them in dog agility, which is it's a very competitive sport. And so she's just absolute legend in the sport. And she's legend in terms of being able to teach it and create this impact. And she's built a very nice business. And she's also legend within Plat Plus because of her skill in marketing and business building. And she's had several innovations in her launches that many in the group, including me, have taken on and used, like the way she uses testimonials, for example. I've been doing that for years. There's this whole legend. There's many legends within Plat Plus because it's been around for so long, but there's the Susan testimonial thing where you actually get your clients to do video testimonials and they're competing to have the best testimonial. And then you have a little bit of a contest where you show all of those to your audience, to your list, and have them vote on the best ones. And then there's a prize for the best testimonial. And it ends up creating a massive social proof and getting your audience engaged in consuming your case studies and your testimonials. So that's just one example. And I'm getting a little off track here, going into the legend of Plat Plus and some of the history of it. But yeah, Dan, that is an absolute great distinction.
Yeah, and I think Susan is a really good example. Just of one thing that I see in this group a lot too, which is just they're innovators. And one thing I see with Susan a lot is just that uh, not being afraid to fail, not being afraid, like being way more afraid of standing still, being way more afraid of just like doing the same thing over and over until it becomes obsolete. Being way more afraid of that versus doing something new. Like I have a quote, like I just got my whole like list of quotes written down here. One of the quotes that I loved from the meeting with her, she's talking about how she has a new puppy and she's training this puppy, and Susan has, I don't know how many dogs, and she, and just loves them in this great farm, area where she, I don't know if it's technically a farm, but, this great area where she has tons of room for them to run and play. But, she's a world champion competitor, so she's always training her dogs to be, at a fairly high level, if in general. And I mean, I remember I've seen social media videos from Susan where she's literally got a litter of like a dozen puppies, and these are like 6, 7 week old puppies, like puppies that would not normally be old enough for adoption, and they're running around playing and having all this fun. And she just calls him to come, and literally this dozen like not even adoptable age puppies just drops their toys and just runs to her. It's like it doesn't just seems magic. But she has this quote. She says, every new puppy I have, she says, I do 40% different. And she's talking about when she's training this puppy. And this is somebody who is, absolute world class. She's like, I know how to train a puppy really, really well. And I can always go back to the known. I can always fix anything. I can always go back to the tried and true strategies. So she says she tries 40% different, 40% new stuff every single time, because she's like, I can always fix anything that goes wrong. So why not just see what I can discover, what new stuff I can find? And I find this happens a ton with her marketing too. I mean, even the concept of doing launches live. She was one of the very first people that I know of to do a live launch. And it's just one of those things. Just like, okay, cool. I can always go back to the stuff that works. So why not try something new? And if it doesn't seem like it's working that well, you can always go back to the known stuff. I just thought that was like super, super cool, just different mindset.
Absolutely. One of the things that we do in Plat Plus and Launch Club Mastermind, and both the masterminds, is we do launch debriefs. So I did a very extensive debrief of my recent launch and went deep into every aspect of that launch. And then we had another debrief we had a few other debriefs, but we had this debrief from someone who basically in the group doubled the size of their launch. They went from a launch that did a little over 1 million to a launch that did a little over 2 million, which is pretty awesome. It's always great to double your launch results. But she did it through basically compressing the launch and delivering less content in the launch and making it more consumable. And she did it over the Christmas holidays, which was just mind blowing to so many of us. So there were um, so many innovations within her launch and things that people, like one of the things we do at the end of the meeting is we do go around to top takeaways. And a lot of top takeaways were, wow, I got to take a look at that Christmas season, because maybe it is, yeah, I'd written it off as a time where to do a promotion, but maybe it actually is a time when people are home and ready to consume.
Which was super funny because I remember when she talked about that, and everyone's first reaction was like, "Oh, that's really cool." And then when it came time to for people to ask questions at the end of the presentation, a lot of people were like, "So like, you ever think about doing it not over Christmas though? Because people are going to be really distracted during Christmas, and maybe if you did the same thing, but you did it at a different time of year, it'd be even better." And she was like, "No, no, 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 no. Like, I know my avatar. I know my people. And her avatar was I believe it was women over 40 who have a family who are looking to start a business. And she's like, you know what? This is when they have time. Like the whole family's at home. They don't have work. She does it, later morning. She's like, they can get up, they can get their kids going, they can get their kids set up with something, and then they can set aside some time just for them to pursue the thing that they want to do, which is start this business. And she's like, this is when my avatar is the most available. And it's funny, she does it live, and she starts with, her first thing in her launch is live at 10 a.m. on Christmas morning, which is not a time that I would have guessed would have worked. But for her, she's like, no, this is awesome. And it's just like that sort of, like she took something that most people would just write off. And she's like, you know what, actually, like, give this a try.
Yeah, I bet there's actually something to that, just in that people, when they're in a good mood, tend to be great clients too, and tend to be a great time for you to talk to them and impact them, is when they're already feeling in a positive, good mood. So, yeah, 100%. I could see that working. But that's fascinating. If someone was doing a big launch and actually starting their stuff on Christmas morning, that's it's like a whole other level of gift that you're giving to the world, right? That's cool.
Totally,
So,
totally,
some,
totally.
yeah, something else we talked about over really both of the masterminds is AI, because artificial intelligence, ChatGPT, is it's a big deal, right? And in fact, we've been talking about it within these groups for a long time, long before ChatGPT came out. That's why one of the reasons I was able to be ahead of the curve with the whole AI piece, or the whole AI thing, the phenomena, is it's something we've been watching within these groups for years. And so in a way, these masterminds, it's almost like you have about 35 people, 35, 40 people in each with their antenna out, and they're bringing the greatest opportunities and the greatest threats, the greatest dangers, the greatest potentials, the greatest tools, and they're bringing it to the group nonstop all year round, not just in the meetings. And so I've been tracking AI for quite a long time. And one of the things I think really sort of came out of both groups is really it's almost like I'm going to put it in a positive light. There's like a democratization of marketing right now, because anyone with access to ChatGPT, they can do pretty okay marketing now. So now someone who's just has no knowledge whatsoever can still do okay at marketing. So that means that okay marketing is not going to cut it if everyone's got it, because you have to be better than the competition. That's just
Hmm.
reality. Markets have gotten more competitive, and so to stay ahead, your marketing has to get better. It has to be
Hmm.
better than it always had to be better than average, but average has gotten better and is getting better because of AI.
Hmm. Yeah, and I think to me, it's interesting. It's so much reminiscent of, so I'm a photographer for fun, and at various times in my life that was something that I did professionally, and it's always funny when people would ask, like they would ask like, oh, now that everyone's got a camera in their pocket and smartphones can take great pictures, like, isn't that gonna kill photography? And my answer is like, well, I mean, it'll kill people who just can afford a camera, and that's the only reason they can take a good picture. But honestly, I think it introduces opportunity, because now that it's no longer just, okay, well, if you have a high quality camera that you can spend a lot of money on, you can take a good picture. Now that the barrier has been the barrier is so much lower. It's such a small barrier to entry that virtually anybody can take a decent enough picture. Then when someone comes along who actually has skills, who can actually, use that equipment to its fullest and take something really special, then your average person is going to almost have more appreciation for it. Like it's going to stand out almost more because you do have something truly special. And I think it's a lot like that with AI. It's like, okay, yeah, sure, anyone can create something. So yeah, the people who, were leaning on, maybe an expensive tool, or leaning on just, they knew the basics, so they were better than everybody else. That might not cut it anymore. But I do think there's also a real opportunity to stand out, and I think we see that in these groups about people who. They're not worried about AI killing their businesses. They're just excited about how much more they can stand out, how much more they can just like how much it can accelerate their progress.
Yeah, and I'm guessing just being in that room is probably a big part of why they feel that confidence, right? Is that they are in a room of people that have clearly been crushing it or doing some big things. Um, and so I guess I'm curious because obviously this group has been going on for a while, and we have launched Club Mastermind as well, which has now been going on for a while. And the idea of the value of being in the room with this with great people. Um, what do you think? Why do you think there is so many people? Why do you think they all are coming back to this room instead of seeking out other? I mean, I know you mentioned it's good people, but like, is there some magical secret sauce, or is there something that you think is specific about this group, or is it something you're creating in this group to make it kind of gel and attract these kind of people?
Ooh, okay. I wanna jump in. I wanna ask this question in a different way because I want to ask this to Jeff. So because the people in this group, Jeff, these are your peers. These are people who have businesses, equivalent to yours in many, in most all respects. So like, where else in your life can you hang out with a couple dozen people who fully understand that point that you're at and that place that you're at in your life, and who you can like actually like, really like get deep into the struggles and the triumphs and just the day-to-day life of running a business like that. Is there anywhere else in your life that you find that?
No, no, there isn't. Yeah, I think there's, oh boy, this question goes so deep. There isn't. It's lonely being an entrepreneur. It is lonely being a leader. It's lonely at the top. And so to have this group, when I started this group, and then I'll get to Chris, your answering your question as well. When I started this group, so I've been in masterminds literally since 1992, 1992, and I've seen them come and go. I've kept on outgrowing them, and then when I first started Plat Plus, I was like, I'm sick of outgrowing masterminds. I want to create the perfect mastermind for me. And that's what I did. And when we started, my business was way, way bigger than everyone else's. They were clearly my students, but over the years they've grown up and they have become peers. And it's amazing. But one of the parts that when I said I want to create the perfect mastermind, that I wanted it to not just be about launches and not just be about marketing. I wanted to be about building great businesses. And beyond that, I really wanted to be about building great lives. Because, there's a lot of people, you hear about the hustle culture and the grinding culture. And there are certainly times when you're growing a business where you do have to grind really hard and you have to hustle really, really hard. But in the way I approach it is like, if your business is not serving your life and it's not creating a great life for you, and you aren't able to have a life where you have time freedom and you aren't able to have a great health and great relationships, if your business is costing you your health and costing you your relationships, then you're building the wrong business, in my opinion. There are other people that would disagree with that, that all they care about is like, I want to have $1 billion business and I'm going to run through everything in my way, including my health and my relationships. And that's fine. We all got one life. If people are choosing that direction, that's fine, but that's not the direction that I have chosen. So I wanted to create this mastermind that really served us in our entire businesses and even in our entire lives. And from the beginning, I designed it that way. And it turned, Chris, we were talking to Barry Baumgartner the other day, and I'm just going to quote her, so it doesn't look like I'm bragging that much, but there's what she said is, there's no one in the industry that can create community like I create community. And I'll take that. I'll agree. I'll put aside any false modesty. I'm sure there are some that I don't know of that have created unbelievable communities. But these are the best communities that I know of. And I don't know exactly how I create those communities. I don't know what the special sauce is. It's one of those unconscious competences. But I think the answer why they don't leave this group, why it's just because, and some people do, we renew it about 95% every year, which is astounding. There's just that number doesn't exist in the industry for the most part, as far as I know. But still a few people leave now and then. Mm-hmm. But for the most part, they come back every year because they're getting a huge return on investment, both financially in their business, but I think also in all the other areas of their lives.
I just add on there that it appears to me that I'd say 90+% of the people who drop out or who do move on from the program are moving on because they're moving on to something totally different in their life. They're like, hey, business is not going to be my main priority going forward, or I want to go on and do this totally different juncture, or I want to take some time off from my business or something like that. Right. It's usually people who are, and then, they usually seem pretty, at least they seem pretty sad to leave usually, but they are higher end groups. So it is a significant investment and, time as well as money to being part of these groups. So,
yeah. I mean, we've had, when I think about, like, I can think of one member, I don't want to say his name, but he left because he wanted to go create an organic farm. And another one was like, I've made all this money and really I just want to be a songwriter. So I'm going to move to Nashville and become a songwriter. And having all this money that I've made from my online business has afforded me to be able to basically retire and go write songs in Nashville. So those are some of the folks that have left.
Yeah, that's a good exit strategy.
Like, I've won.
So Chris, we're caught up here in just the first 2 days of our week.
I know we haven't even got to the next part.
Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday we had a fun day with the mastermind. We all went to the event was in Dallas, and we went to the Botanical Gardens in Dallas. And it was just amazing. It was really, really cool. And it just was a super relaxed day where people could just hang out and connect. And I think some of these fun days that we have, I think if you could add up the amount of business that happens because of those fun days, whether it's whitewater rafting or salsa making contest or a humor workshop or go riding the train up to Silverton, Colorado, or going to the Botanical Gardens, I think the amount of business that happens because of those fun days is just off the charts, but they're also just a lot of fun. So that was Wednesday. And then Thursday, we went into our launch club. Well, Wednesday night, we had a reception with both groups together, which is super powerful. Mm-hmm. And then Thursday and Friday, we went into the launch club mastermind.
Yeah, Launch Club Mastermind. That was that was an amazing event too. And I guess I should preface it that it's a different mastermind in a way. But what would you? I mean, if you were to say it's different, but it's also the same, I guess, in many ways, because it's a similar format as far as the way it's run. You have a really powerful structure to your masterminds that has clearly been working, that makes people want to show up, want to be there, and stay there. But the group, it's a whole completely different group of people. and a lot of them emerged out of our launch club program. So I mean, the energy is a little different between the two, but they're both a very, very distinct and powerful group, I guess, is my observation from having been at both at one point in my life. So
Yeah, it's interesting. So in 2015, so like 8 years ago now, we started this launch club, which is our high-end coaching program for people that are really truly going after mastery in their launches and in their marketing. So that's Launch Club. And when we started out, most people in Launch Club were just getting started, but over the years, some of them have had so much success that I ended up creating another mastermind just to support those folks. And so we have these two different masterminds, which Chris, you mentioned, they're run in a very, very similar format, but they're two different groups. In Launch Club Masterminds, currently, I think around 35, 36, 37 people, somewhere in there.
yeah.
And the one way to think about the differences, just to make it about the numbers, is that to get into Plat Plus now, you sort of need to be in that $2 million range. And we've got people in the 2 million, most of them are in that between 2 million and $30 million per year in their business. And the Launch Club Mastermind are people that are closer to the beginning of their journey, but are still really doing well. And they're more in that, say, 400,000 up to $2 million. And so they're just a little, that group is earlier in its journey. It was our ninth meeting. So we're 3 years, we're ending our third year with that group, as opposed to Plus, where we're ending their 13th year. But, and people are just, they're a little earlier in their journey, but they're still, the level of badassery in that room is incredibly high, because running a business at, 4, 5, 6, 700,000, $1 million, $2 million, you're still doing pretty darn well.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, just a different energy of people that are a little closer to the beginning, and other people that have a more mature business, larger teams, larger overhead often, and just very. I like to think of it more like one group is like the college freshmen, that's the Launch Club Mastermind, and they're all just pumped up and excited, and the other group is like the post grad students that it takes a lot for me to get those guys excited. It's a powerful room. I love them dearly, but they just aren't quite as easy to get pumped up.
Well, I think the Plat Plus folks, they're the folks who are generally at the top of their markets. They're up there. They've got significant teams, and they've been running significant businesses for a long time. And a lot of discussions are those really long-term strategic, or team growing, or in a lot of cases, it's like what happens once you, build a business and you get to that top level point, where do you go from there? And then Launch Club Mastermind, these are the folks that they're on the come up, they're just, they're the folks who are just like, I am on my way to the top, and are just so fired up about it. But it ends up being different sorts of discussions. And it is really cool seeing them back to back like that.
Yeah. I think that's a great discussion, a great distinction. People that in Plat Plus, they are top of the heap. And in the Launch Club Mastermind, they're on their way to getting to the top.
They're hungry.
Yeah. So do you talk about different things in the LCMM or Launch Club Mastermind versus the Plat, I guess? And is just the level of conversation different, or is it also, do you talk more about launches, or what would you say is what do you guys talk about? That's what people want to know. They want to know, what are you guys talking about in these meetings?
The funny thing is, it doesn't even seem like the discussions are at necessarily a higher level in either group. They're just different focused.
Mm.
Yeah, I would say, well, first of all, the way I do these meetings is that they are, so one of the things about these groups is there is a conversation going on 24/7, 365, because we have a messaging app that we're using, we have an email group, and so they're in conversation every single day. And so what I do coming into a meeting is I tap into that conversation. I look at what are the hot topics for each group. And then I'll send people like a little survey to say, what should we cover? Do you have anything you want to share? And so the agendas are completely different. And they're built to what the conversation is within that group at that current moment. And so one of the things I did do my debrief for both groups. We always have hot seats in each group. There'll be a hot seat where we'll focus on one person's business for 30 minutes. The entire group might focus on it, and then we basically have a way where everyone gets a hot seat in smaller groups. So we always do those things. Those are the standards. But then it's very different. It's based on the conversation. And frankly, like if you look at like generally Lunch Club Mastermind, if you're at that 400,000, 500,000, 600, $1 million, $1.5 million, you are starting, you've already got some team, but it's probably a relatively small team. So the teams are generally bigger over in the Plat room. And so often there's more of a focus on team and leadership and team building and how a team functions in the Launch Club room, in the Launch Club Mastermind room, just because that's more an area where they're at. Maybe it's more about finances and how you manage the money within your business. And it can be probably a little bit more tactical marketing, whereas the folks in Plat Plus, they've been doing that marketing for so long, and now it's like the slight little nuances where in Lunch Club Mastermind, it's more tactical.
Mhm.
But at the
Yeah,
end
we
of
have.
the day, yeah, sorry, go on.
Oh, yeah, I was just going to say, just talking about some of the, you know, um, some of the things that people listen and can take some action on here. Like we had a whole big discussion. I think the half of one of the days, pretty much, so about quarter of one of the meetings for Launch Club Mastermind, was focused on like, hey, what are you seeing are the big industry trends right now? What's working right now? Because again, people in all kinds of different industries, all doing similar stuff. All yeah, all doing similar sorts of stuff in their marketing, but in different industries. So it's like, hey, what are like the meta trends that are going on here? So yeah, I don't know if we could even go into a little bit of that, share a little bit of some of that stuff that we were hearing out of the groups. Um,
Yeah, Dan, if you want to just jump in there.
yeah, I think this is a big topic for both of the groups for sure, because it seems like, the world online business is changing quick. It's changing quick with AI. One thing that was just coming up and it's interesting, it came up for us in our launch, and it came up in both rooms, was just the thought about making things, like making things easy to consume, easy to, access the information. It's one of those thoughts about like we were going back to when we were talking about earlier here when we were sitting down, about how ChatGPT and AI, it's making everything easier to access, easier to create. It's easier to create your marketing. It's easier to do research on your stuff. And there's a lot of discussion about like, oh, is this really changing everything? And it is, but also, I think for a long time now, there's been all the information that you could want about just about any topic is out there on the internet. So I think there's this topic that kept coming up over and over and over about like, why are people going to come to you to learn something? Why are they going to come to you to learn? Aren't they just going to use ChatGPT to learn whatever they want to learn? And the answer that kept coming up was like, no, they're not. They're just the information's all been out there for at least probably the last decade since YouTube got really big. It feels like you can learn anything you want to learn. People don't come to you for just to learn the thing. They come to learn the thing from you. They come from your experience and your discernment and your ability to condense a topic so they don't have to go through and study the entire history of everything that's out there on the internet. They can just come to you and they can learn just what they need to know in the fastest, simplest, easiest way possible so that they can start putting it to action. And they'll pay you for that. Like that is the value. The value is the way that you are able to break down, simplify a topic, and give them just what they need in the shortest amount of time. Like that's the thing that people are really going to pay you for. Like I thought that was just a huge, incredibly important thought that came out of both of these meetings, honestly.
I know we've been talking a lot about how great the groups are and being around the right people and sort of the meta of being in a group like this. But when we talk about what you're actually talking about, were there takeaways out of Plat Plus and Launch Club Mastermind that you're like, wow, okay, here are some nuggets, here are some things that people can just sort of get a peek behind the curtain of what level of value people can be taking away from a group like this?
Yeah, one big one that I saw, and this is something we talked about in both the groups, but I thought, we've talked a lot about Barry on this podcast, but one thing that Barry Baumgartner said that really summed it up, I think, was to me, she was like, people don't want everything you know. They want only what they need to know. All the information is already out there. What they're paying you for, people want to pay you for, is they want to pay you for your lens, for your discernment. And I think that's such a key point. It's like, um, I think this is just becoming more and more and more true out in the world that if someone really just wants to learn how to do something and they're willing to devote a huge amount of time to it and they have an internet connection, they can probably learn everything they need to know without paying anybody for anything. Like all the information on how to do just about everything is already out there in the world. But that's not how most people want to go about things, and most people don't have the time to go about things, whether you're building a business and, then you don't have time to put your business on hold for a year to, research and, 10 hours a day, 12 hours a day, how to do something. And if you're looking to start a business, you probably don't have time to just, hey, take that time off from work and instead of building a business, just research this thing for hundreds of hours. So what people will pay you for is for distilling it down and making it simple and making it easy for them to go through and easy for them to consume. I just thought that was, again, a topic that came up so much in both groups, but just so powerful the way she put that.
I'll give you another Barry quote from the meeting. Too many deliverables, not enough outcomes. So that a lot of times when we're focused on creating a product, creating an offer, whether it's a course or a membership site or a workshop or whatever, we're all about adding in more line items, more things, more calls, more videos, more PDFs. And that is, people are buying outcomes. They don't care how many Zoom calls they're going to get. And we all know this, and it sounds obvious, but it's so easy to forget. It's so easy to go into that place of almost insecurity. Like if I put in more things and I can list more things on my order form, it's going to be more attractive. When in reality, people want you to simplify, and they want less. They want the outcome. It's always been this way, but I think more now than ever. I think the markets are changing. And we talked about this a little bit earlier. People want, this is one of my big takeaways that I gave from my debrief. People want what they want, and they want it when they want it. And they're not willing, you have to make it more frictionless for people to consume from you, whether it's your marketing or your product. And then I know Ruth had a really interesting distinction. She had it on to what Barry said of the too many deliverables, not enough outcomes. And she said, focus on how you get your participant to realize they've had the outcome, to realize they've had the results, to realize they've had that success. And I was like, oh yeah, I could think on that for a long time.
There's always moments like that when I'm at these events that I have an ongoing running list of just quotes from the meeting that I write down and then I go back and reflect on, because there's just so many of them that happen as you're in the room for this type of event. And I mean, one that I think has come up at multiple meetings and I've heard, but I definitely heard at this one too, was just out of the wound comes the gift. And that quote has just continued to resonate with me, because it is so key to, when we go through challenges or when we go through something that is in the moment not easy or not what we want to have happen. You might consider it a wound. We know that out of those times come some of our greatest gifts and some of the best parts of us that emerge. And just having something so succinctly said and so powerfully said in that moment, that has stuck with me. There's so many quotes like that just stick with you out of these kind of groups.
I feel like we're moving through the week we
We
had
are. We are. This is Thursday, Friday, and we're
Thursday,
getting
Friday.
into Saturday, Sunday. And Friday night we
Well,
had,
Friday first, a great reception
yeah,
Friday with the coolest photo booth
that
ever.
was so
That
cool.
was,
Yeah, I mean, literally, like, yeah. I mean, I've seen some cool photo booths before, but this was like next level. You couldn't not look cool in this photo booth. That was what this was. It was like you were
yeah,
in the Matrix slash also at a party and awesome. Like it was very very neat. And just
yeah.
everybody there being able to reconnect. And I think this was one of those moments that because we got all the rest of Launch Club there, as well as some of Plat was still there, and then and then most of LCMM was still there, and so this was a real coming together of really the launch community. And I mean, well, how was that for the two of you? Just after coming out of those two events and coming into a place where, all right, the rest of the community is here now.
Well, first of all, I mean, we could talk later about how I deal with this as an introvert because I am an
Yeah,
introvert. And so if you count, like starting on the Sunday before that reception, this was Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. And now all of a sudden I've got a whole bunch more people. We probably about 120 people there at that reception. And of course everyone's there all excited to be there, all excited to see each other, but all excited to see me. And frankly, yeah, I am an introvert, but man, it's fun. It is fun being in that kind of energy. My only problem was I didn't get to eat. I literally got no. So like we tend to put on some pretty lavish receptions and really we call it a reception, but it was really a
yeah,
dinner. Very, very nice dinner. And they had all these stations all over the room with all this food you could have. But I was so busy talking to people and having people one person after another come up to me and just joyous fun. But I'm like, I need to eat finally at whatever time it was. I'm like, hey, I need to eat. But the food had already been all put away.
yeah,
So
yeah.
Oh, so you missed that mac and cheese bar?
I
Oh my
missed, yeah,
goodness.
well, yeah.
Yeah.
The spoiler alert,
Oh,
the innovation was putting the mac and cheese bar stuff on top of one of the sliders. Like, ooh, that was the key move. So there you go. That's a
yeah.
key takeaway from LCX. It's
Yeah.
mac and
Well,
cheese on
mac
a
and
burger
cheese
works.
doesn't work in my gluten-free world so well. So I didn't miss that, but
But
yeah.
well, I get that though, because it is one of those things when you get in that room, and I mean, Jeff and I, we were working on something earlier that day, and so we were a little bit not super late for the reception, but a little bit late for that reception, right? Fashionably late. And what happened was, yeah, as soon as you get in there, people just want to talk, right? I know, like people obviously want to talk to you, but you wind up getting connections. You see people you haven't seen in a year sometimes in person, and and I was hungry that night too. I'll just say that. I didn't get as much food as as I would have liked to because I saw that mac and cheese thing and I just never made it to that because of going across the room.
Oh,
It was hard to get there. There were so many great connections as
tragic.
you go through the room.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I forgot about that, Chris. I forgot that we were late getting in
Yeah,
there.
yeah.
We did.
We were working on something, so which we can. I mean, that's part of the value of being there in person is there are some really cool things that happen. LCX is a different event than the Launch Club Mastermind because it really truly is an event. Like we're not just doing this in one small little room with like 30 some odd people. This was, this is 100 people in a large venue room with a stage and lights and big screen setup. And this was something that we really, I mean, fully production, like full production level stuff that's going on for people. And we had a fully parallel virtual studio happening at the exact same time with an amazing agenda, with an intro and out and closing messages and like special guest speakers coming in. Like this was a full on event. This is not a mastermind. This was like people going in there, connecting around tables and then having large speakers on the front of the room. So we were really shifting gears here from an event
Yeah.
standpoint, from going from
Right.
small room to like
Mhm.
big room, big production, big event. And I'm curious for you, Jeff. I mean, you're kicking this kind of thing off, right? What's happening at the beginning of these events, and how do you think about these events as you go into them and shifting gears from say a mastermind into an event like this?
Well, one of the things is that, first of all, being in the mastermind I had two-day meetings before that. So even though those are smaller, intimate, the setting's different. It's a much smaller room. Everyone's seated in a U shape around me, so I'm in and amongst all of them. It's so even though it's a very different setting from the Launch Club meeting, the LCX we called it, where I'm on stage with lights and everything. Even though it's a completely different type of setup in a venue, having those 4 days with the mastermind, I'm still on stage. I'm still at the front of the room for much of the time, and sort of gets me in that groove of being on stage and presenting. And so that's a great thing. And then it's just the other thing is a whole bunch of people from the mastermind are there already, and so many people in the launch club I know and have become good friends, and so it's a very warm environment. That's the first thing. For all of you out there who are speakers and you've spoke on various stages, there's a whole continuum of stages. Some of them you walk on and they're super warm, and some are super cold. It's just the way they are. And every room is different. But when I walk out into there and it's my community, it's just the greatest feeling in the world. I mean, I love it. I'm an introvert, but I absolutely love being on that stage. And so when I walk out, the thing that's important, foremost in mind. So for that first session, so I'm going to be doing 2 days, and it's not going to be just me, but I'm going to have a significant amount of time on stage. But I am holding the container of those 2 days. I am the producer of those 2 days. And so in that first session, I just want to make sure we get everyone completely present and fully landed in that room. Because again, they've traveled from all over the world. There are people from Ireland, there are people from Africa, there are people from Australia, there are people from Mexico, there are people from Brazil, there was people from all over Europe, from England, all over the state. So they've come a long way, and they've gone through various things to get there. And we had that reception Friday night. Now Saturday morning, I was like, now I have to make sure they are fully present, that they completely land here, that they leave the outside world behind, because that's how we're going to create the most powerful environment. Because there's only so much I can do from stage. There's only so much our coaches can do from stage. There's only so much any presenters can do from stage. Much of the experience of that room is the interactions they'll have with each other, the interactions when they're seated next to each other, the takeaways they'll share with each other, the moments they'll have on break. And so I guess this is part of that community building that I don't know how I do it as I'm thinking about this now. But it's so important to get them to be fully all in for the event, and as much as possible, leave the outside world behind and say, I'm in this place of unlimited possibility, of unlimited empowerment, of unlimited capability. And there's limits to everything, but we're in a room where we can create together far more than any of us can create on our own. And so the more I can get them to be fully present to what's happening on the stage, but also to each other and what's happening between each other, then the more powerful that event will be. And so that first session that's what it's all about. It's not about coming out and teaching a bunch of marketing tactics. And I think if you're thinking about doing an event, or you've done events, maybe there's this idea of more content, more content, more content. We stuff more ideas into them. The more ideas I can stuff in them, the better. And I want the first 5 minutes out there, I want them writing and writing and writing and writing and feel like they're overflowing with ideas. And that's, in my experience, not the way to go. I take that first session, and it's an investment in the rest of the session. It's an investment in the rest of the event. And the investment is to get them fully landed and fully connected with me and with each other and with the greater community.
Yeah.
Which is honestly, I think, probably a really good lesson for people who are putting on live events, but also for anybody who's creating any type of experience, whether it's in a product, whether it's in your marketing, whatever. I mean, what you literally just described there was, again, you don't want too many deliverables, not enough outcomes. It's like, what's the outcome that you're looking for these folks coming out of the event? And I mean, holy cow, we had some presenters on the second day, Emma and Eleanor from the Reconnected. They're 3 years ago, they were just starting their business and they were in that room. And now, they've got, now they just did their first $1 million launch. And now they're speakers, they're teaching, they're sharing some of their journey. And so like, we have real goals coming out of this event about where we want our people to, what the people who attend that event, what do we want them to leave with? And what we don't want them to leave with is, 1,000,001 deliverables that are not leading to one outcome.
Mm-hmm. And something for the context of this event too, because some people might actually have listened or are going to listen to the event podcast with Barry Baumgartner actually too. And one of the things that I think is distinct from, say, this event versus what we might be talking about with Barry is that, in Barry's event, we were talking about offers and making a big high ticket offer. And the success of an event is really hinging upon creating that atmosphere where people are ready to purchase and do all that. And that's not this event. That's because this is not a place where we made an offer. This is a deliverable event in many ways where, as you mentioned, it's about getting people in the room at the beginning. And then throughout the event, the agenda is full of that content. And really, there was so many great messages around, very strong tactical things people can take and use and apply into their business upon leaving. There was mindset to bring people, to a higher level of entrepreneurial and success mindset. There was, examples and inspirational panels where people could ask questions and be able to pull from people who are out there really creating success. We had very focused panels too around things like copywriting, for example. So I want to make sure everybody understands that this is not about, say, creating the environment where somebody's ready to purchase something, but really bringing them into the environment where they're ready to be receptive and learn and grow over the next 2 days and leave different and changed.
So, Chris, that's a great distinction. And, there are a lot of events that are designed to sell something. And sometimes I do those events, and they're amazing events. In fact, we talked to Barry Baumgartner in one of our episodes that will be released sometime around this episode about making high ticket offers at events. And those are what we call enrollment events. So they're events that are designed to deliver an immersive experience to move people along, but at the end of the day, to get them to enroll in a higher ticket offer. And enrollment events are amazing. I've done plenty of them over the years. This was not that. This was what we call a fulfillment event, where we are fulfilling on our high ticket offer. We're fulfilling an amazing experience. And so there were no offers at this Launch Club event. In fact, there was 0 order forms. There was nothing handed out except for some swag. So no offer whatsoever. But it's all about creating an amazing experience. And the more amazing experience we create, the more we get people to move forward, the more we get people mastering their launches, the more we get them launching. And ultimately that ends up also doing well for us because they end up staying in the program and renewing and getting their friends to join. So, there's a huge business case for doing this event, but it's not about selling.
Mm-hmm.
At least it's not about selling anything they can pay for. It's about selling them on their success, on their capabilities, on their ability to move forward. Because I don't care at what level you're at. I don't care if you've got a $100,000 business or a $500,000 business or $1 million or $5 million or $10 million or $30 million or $100 million. You always have to, well, we talked about it earlier, protect your confidence. You always have to protect your mindset. You always have to have faith in your capabilities. And so this event's very much about tactics. I mean, I just wrote down some of the tactics. We went deep on ads, and Facebook ads. We went deep on statistics and how to read the data coming out of your business. We went deep on professional branding, on copy, on webinars. So there's all kinds of tactics. But woven throughout there, Chris, you just used that word, that phrase, mindset. Woven throughout there was basically giving them, our attendees, our precious attendees, giving them that focus, that confidence in their capabilities so that they can go out and create great things in the world.
I think we really succeeded in that this time. And I know we've already got some feedback from our people, and we're starting to get that, coming, because we do that every time we run an event. We get feedback from people to make it better and make it stronger and make it more of a fulfilling event. But from your perspective, being, we were all in different places for this event, which was interesting, right? Like I was in the virtual studio running a lot of that and getting all of that going. Dan, you were, on stage and off stage, and seeing it from multiple angles. And Jeff, obviously you were mainly in that kind of that backstage and, coming on and off stage throughout the whole event. I'd love for us to dig into like, what were some highlights and experiences and takeaways that people could take, that we could give them a little glimpse behind the curtain of what it's like to be at a launch club event.
The one thing that I heard so much from people that was just so valuable is was the ability to just connect directly with Jeff. We had all of our, I think almost all of our launch club coaches there. Just that value of getting out to some of these in-person events and being able to, just kind of grab someone and just be like, just those informal little mastermind sessions, the hot seats that happen, the ability to grab someone in the hallway and just say like, hey, I'm trying to figure out this thing. What do you think? We had a whole copy session too, where we actually like broke down people's pages, and discussed from stage, like, hey, what can they be doing better? I think it's just that ability to get that feedback, beyond even some of the presentations, just ability to talk to people and get feedback on their stuff.
Yeah, that session was so cool to watch from you guys on stage. Literally just, they put up, and this is funny because it was literally Justin Livingston, you and Dan were all on stage, and it's funny, that was our copywriting episode for the podcast as well, right? But to look at people's sales pages, for example, or opt-in pages, and for you to dissect or deconstruct from a very macro level of like what works, where you would make changes, how to, and like some of them were little changes and some of them were just very clear big changes that if they just changed 2 or 3 things, and by the end of that event some people had their pages like shifted and changed, and they were able to see results coming out of that one session, and how other people could watch and say, ooh, I'm making that mistake, or oh, that's something I could take away and use in my opt-in pages. That was just so cool. I saw that from the virtual stage, people were like, oh my gosh, this is so helpful. Oh my gosh, I'm going to change this in my page. Oh my gosh, that's something I need to start doing. And just grounding it in real examples. I think that was such a powerful session for people.
Yeah, we have a saying, and I don't know if I made this up or someone in the community did, but that everyone is blind in their own launch.
Mm.
And I would expand it. Everyone's blind in their own marketing. And it's so easy to look at someone else's stuff and see what needs fixing. And that's why hot seats are so amazing. And that's why outside feedback is so amazing. But like when we did that copy session, so many times, one of the things we saw over and over was that people would have great copy, but it would be buried down on the page.
Mm-hmm.
And often like the subhead or the first sentence would be the thing that should be the headline. And
mm-hmm.
I don't know what it is, but people get messed up with headlines and they would bury the lead. When down the page, there'd be something amazing. It's just like, okay, just copy and paste that and move it up into your headline and you'll probably double your conversion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I believe this is something we talked about during the copywriting episode. And it's one of those things that I think we get caught by it too. I think it's something that we often will write some copy and then look at it and be like, oh, dang it. Oh, we did it again, but it's the thought of like, and I think people assume too much investment. They assume too much investment on the part of the people watching. And, it's like, so they assume like, oh, well, someone's going to get to my page and they click to my page, so they're interested. So they're going to read the whole page. They're going to scroll down and read the whole thing. So they design it assuming that someone's going to go through the whole thing. So, they've got, a countdown timer at the top and the title of their thing, and they scroll down and they've got a little introduction, then they scroll down, and then they've got the thing that really should be the headline, but it takes a lot of scrolling to get there, and that's like their really punchy point. And then they have more stuff, and then they save their most punchy, their most impactful message, and they leave it at the end because that's the last thing people are going to read, and they're going to read the thing, and then they're going to land on their message and say, oh my gosh, yes, and then they're going to click the buy button. But the reality is that like 15% of the people who land on the page are actually going to go all the way to the bottom. But so it's like, what you need to do is you need to take that most impactful thing and put that like at the top so that it makes the big impact, because everybody's going to see the thing that's at the top. And, so it's like that, you're putting yourself in that other person's shoes of being like, okay, I'm coming into this and I'm interested enough to click on it. And then whatever the first thing I see, that's going to be the thing. And then that first thing has to be so compelling that it inspires you to read the rest, or to just click the button right away. Like, that's something else we saw a lot, right? People would, they'd put the action they wanted people to take way far down the page. So the actual like click to buy button would be, you'd have to scroll way down the page before you'd see the first button to buy. And by buy, I just mean take an action. It could be buy, it could be sign up for an email list, it could be do whatever. Whereas, the thing that I think most of the pages we kept coming back to is like, no, put that most impactful thing right at the top and then a call to action. Mm-hmm. And then you can basically, continue on and do whatever else you want to after that point. Just know that probably at least half the people are not going to scroll.
Yeah, that was great. That was great. I remember that. That was great. There were so many things, even just on the day, like when, Jason Friedman talked about the customer experience. And I know that seems like just such a simple idea, but the way he broke it down into mapping out every single step in what your customer experience is, and then ranking and like on a 0 to 10, like what level of experience are you providing at that moment for your client? And then from there, from a strategic standpoint, thinking through where can you strategically provide things like a level 10 experience, because you can't really have a level 10 experience all the time. Otherwise, it loses that level 10 impact and that level 10 the impact of it for them. And so having those strategically placed throughout your customer experience so that you create these rave fans of going through your program or your customer experience. I just thought there was so much in there that people could take. I don't know. I feel like yeah, I could talk about that for a long time. Even from the meta level of us providing that level experience in the event, but yeah.
Yeah, we got to get Jason on one of these episodes.
We do. Yeah. That'd be so cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was awesome. And he was talking about, that customer journey, both before they're buying and after they're buying. I thought the one thing that he was saying, or, the thought that he was saying that I thought was so cool was he was like, there was a poll that I think he had done or he was referencing where, they had asked CEOs, hey, what's the level of customer experience like, or what percentage of the people going through your customer journey think that they're having an outstanding experience? And I think it was 80%. I'm pretty sure that was saying that that their customers are having 80% of their customers are having outstanding experience. And when they surveyed those same customers, 8% said that they were having an outstanding experience. And the quote that I love from him is he's like, it's not that your customer experience sucks. It's that there's moments of your customer experience that sucks. And it's those micro moments that can really make or break it. It's that moment when someone is, trying to find the link to sign up for your thing and they can't find the link to sign up to your thing because the button is buried somewhere on the page, and then they get annoyed and then they don't do it. You could be having such a great experience up to that point, but then there's that those micro moments of friction that can be irritating. I think a lot of times it can be for us, it can be, as the creators of these things, as the marketers, as the content creators, it can be easy to say, well, like, oh, okay, yeah, that one part's a little awkward or something like that, but it's fine. It's not that big of a deal. Overall, the thing's great, or oh, they'll just get through that little weird part at the beginning, and then because the end experience is so great, the reality is they don't know that end experience is so great. So when they hit that initial friction point, especially if it's early on in the process, then they're just like, I'm out.
Yeah, mapping out the friction points and figuring out what are those points of friction in your funnel or in your customer experience. That was fascinating to see because we saw that show up throughout the whole event, even when we were giving feedback on various parts of people's funnel or copywriting or, all of those areas. I think that, yeah, finding where that friction is and smoothing it so that there isn't friction, it's a small thing, but it's a big thing. If you can do that through every single step of your marketing process and your customer experience, man, that's a game changer.
So, Chris, you want to talk about how we closed the session on Saturday?
Yeah, sure. I mean, well, and this is it, right? We mentioned being a little bit late for the reception. I left an open loop there for a second, but there were some rehearsals, and one of the things I think has been not spoken about yet is that we like to have a lot of fun at these events as well. There is tactics, there is inspiration. You leave growing and changing and being more inspired. But I think part of that is by giving people a fun emotional experience as well. And so on Saturday night, we had an opportunity for us to share the stage with one of the coaches, Ben, and myself, and we got to sing a song actually, which was a new, well, not new. We had done something previous year actually that was a full-on experiment. We didn't know how it was going to go, and went so well. We decided to reprise it again this year, but it wasn't just a regular song. I have been writing parody songs, I guess. I don't like the word parody, but I like inspired by songs. So instead of, say, Wanted Dead or Alive by Bon Jovi, it was Living the Launch Life by Chris and Ben. So and Performing at Life.
Amelia.
And Amelia as well, one of our Launch Club members. Yeah. And getting people on stage to actually do it. And then people who had been at the last year. I had so many people actually at that reception. Part of the reason I think I didn't get to eat was a lot of people were coming up to me being like, hey, are you going to sing again? Are you doing that song again? Is it happening? And I was like, I can't tell you anything. I don't know. Maybe. We'll see. Got to talk to Jeff about that. Maybe. And of course, we knew on Saturday night it was going to happen. So we had some rehearsal time and prep for it. And we also had, we don't want to just do the same thing again. So we in the days before, being inspired by the Launch Club Mastermind people, decided to get to writing. And when we were practicing, Ben had just sort of started doing the riff for Sweet Home Alabama. And so we started to change the lyrics to that one. He's like, ain't it sweet to live the launch laugh? And we're like, oh, we could do something with that. And so I got to work on writing out the new lyrics for it. And in the name of imperfect action and sort of inspiring people to, do things even if they're not 100% perfect, get it out there to the world. After doing Live in the Launch Life, which was our nice polished, rendition of the Wanted Dead or Alive song, we decided to do a less than polished version of Ain't It Sweet to Live the Launch Life based on Sweet Home Alabama. And what was great is I think people got more excited about that song than the first one, just because they were like, oh my gosh, it's great. And I probably got to credit Leonard Skinner.
It's the new unreleased hit,
Exactly, right? And Leonard Skinner it's just such a hooky song, right? Once you hear that riff, you're just like, okay, I'm into this. But yeah.
Chris, do you remember, can you give us like the first verse?
Oh my gosh, yeah. If you give me 1 second, I can bring it up. But yes, here it is. All right. Big sales keep on coming. Carry my team through the years, singing songs about the launch life. Closing card, it's time to cheers. And then I heard some gurus talk about it. They say that launches just don't work. Well, I hope those experts will remember who taught them all to do it first. Ain't it sweet to live the launch life? Waking up to be on Zoom. Ain't it sweet to live the launch life? change the world from this room. And so there's an example, and that goes on from there. I wrote another couple of verses, and it works, and it's one of those things where people, I think, they don't expect it if they haven't been there before, and it was like an experience for them to see that, yeah, we have a lot of fun. And what was neat is people coming up and being like, yes, it was so nice to hear something that resonates with them. And at least that's what I was trying to do with the lyrics, is get something that people can really connect to and say, oh, yes, that's what I'm going through, and that's what I want. Yeah.
That's great. That was so much
So much fun. Yeah, it was. Well, and this is funny. It's like we've always kind of done those things at live events. It's not uncommon for, like, when we're at these events in, say, Durango, where Launch Club Mastermind and Plat get together, we do spend some time around a campfire and some of the fun events and singing songs and playing guitar. And it's always been sort of part of that event. But then at these larger events like LCX, it doesn't always seem to, we don't have a campfire for 100 and some odd people to hang around, right? But in many ways, we got to bring that energy of what that campfire, moment is into the end of day one of LCX, and have people, start singing with us too, right? Like everybody is singing, everybody's up on their feet and they're having a blast. And I think that there is something to that magic of getting people around fire and having them sing and getting that. And we got to bring that energy into the end of day one. I thought fairly successfully. So
Yeah, it was just a great high note to end the day on. It was fantastic.
Man, yeah, that was fun. That was fun. I will say it wasn't the end of the music for the whole thing too, right? I don't know if you want to talk about that, Jeff, but day two, we had a lot of tactical stuff during the day, but I will say, as powerful as day one was, I really think day two was like that evening was one of the more powerful moments I had ever seen in a live event, having been at quite a few of them now with you over the last 7 years. How did you feel?
Yeah.
Do you want
Yeah,
to talk about it?
I would agree. I would agree. It's always important to start an event strong and to end an event strong, and it's always on my mind, how am I going to end something? And especially people, remember, these folks have been in our world for a long time, so they've seen all my tricks. So it's like, what can I do this time? How can we wrap it up this time? And during the week, an idea started to formulate for me early in the week, and I ended up sharing it with Chris and Ben. So Chris is he's our songwriter and our vocal performance person, and Ben is our guitar player and the singer as well. And so I guess how to set this up, I had this thought that I might close the event by singing a song, by playing guitar and singing a song to to everyone, a bit of a goodbye song. And the big deal about this is that I play guitar. I consider myself a beginner at best. I came to it very late in life, but one of the reasons, music's always been a big part of my life, but I've never played it. And one of the reasons was I had an experience that unfortunately I know a lot of people have had, and that was that when I was singing, when I was first trying to learn guitar when I was 12 years old, I was ridiculed for my voice by some of my friends, by some of my best friends. And after that happened, I literally never sang again for about 40 years. And so I thought, well, maybe I could sing a song for them. It would be like the most terrifying thing I've ever done in public, I think. And so Wednesday evening, when I shared that idea with Ben and Chris, and we were up in my suite, and I played the song for them. In fact, I almost had an out of body experience just singing it for them, for the two of them. And then we spent the next few days with them working with me. And Ben is an excellent guitar player and performer. And Chris, spent 4 years studying theater in college and has done all kinds of vocal work. So they coached me from Wednesday all the way through until Saturday and Saturday evening. And I got up there and I told people the story of why I've never performed. And it was because I was ridiculed for my voice. And I know there's a lot of people out there that have that story. And if it's not about singing, it's about something else. So I shared that story, and then I sang this very simple song. The song is Rainbow by G Love with Jack Johnson. And it's got a bit of a goodbye piece to it. And this is the ending the event. And so it was definitely imperfect action. I missed at least one chord change, probably two. My voice is a work in progress. We simplified the song way down, but I think people really appreciated that. Me going out on a huge limb for me. I have a lot of comfort on stage, but it's the first time in my life I've ever performed musically, ever. And then we had a very fun. I basically took the song through one time, and then Ben and Chris came out and joined me, and then we turned the volume up with them singing and playing, and then we got the whole audience singing to each other, and it was magic.
Yeah.
It was just magic.
And I think one of the reasons that people felt that magic in the room is we all can resonate with that fear that we feel before, say, for you, going on stage to do something vulnerable like singing. But for so many people out there, just going on live to talk to their audience, or putting even their first pieces of content out there, or starting this business, or having an idea in their head and sharing it with friends and family. How often do we get people who just naysay or laugh about the idea of, well, that could never be a business, or you're not the type of person who could be successful? And so, it's not unlike what you experienced with being a teenager, I'm guessing, and having people laugh about your voice. And I'll say, having been in theater school, lots of people told me, "Oh, you'll never use this, theater thing again. Why are you doing that in school?" And I'll just say, I use it all the time now. A lot of those things, getting up on stage and being willing to be taking risks and be vulnerable and be authentic and be yourself on stage. Those are the types of things that, and the stage is not necessarily just the stage. A stage is just anywhere that you are showing up. So it I think resonated on that level, on that very macro level, emotional level, with everybody in the room in some capacity, that you were willing to step into that space and be vulnerable and do something that, yes, we see you market all the time and speak on launches, and we show you some copy. You can deconstruct that from a place of authority with no problem. But to do something that everyone knows is not necessarily your specialty, and get a chance to see you be at that beginner stage again, and then for them to feel it as to what it means to step out there and do it, I think it brought the house down. And that was a real moment.
It was. We did a reception after. So we went from that closing and we're all singing together, and then we did a reception, and I had just dozens of people came up to me and they just told me that was like, they said, I just have no excuse anymore. I just have no excuse. I am going to move forward. I'm going to take that chance. And it was because they saw just how big a stretch it was for me. And so I guess, I wanted to do it because I wanted to sing that song to them. I wanted to do it because I wanted to sort of exercise those demons of being laughed at and being ridiculed, and being able to just share something that means so much to me. But I knew that I would be modeling imperfect action because it was very imperfect. I was modeling imperfect action and modeling vulnerability and taking a risk. And so there's a lot of I still can't believe I woke up the next morning. I was like, I cannot believe I did that. I just cannot believe I actually did that, because folks, my voice is so imperfect. and my playing is so imperfect. Then you put the two of them together and it's so imperfect. But
But
but it was lovely to share that with them, with my treasured launch club. And yeah, it was a great moment. I know it really moved a lot of people, and I know it's going to move them to creating great things in their lives in this coming year.
yeah, I mean, being nervous is not an excuse to not do it. It's very, very, I mean, and I hope you don't mind to say it, but you were nervous, and I could tell that it was a different thing to see from a person who has, seen you backstage ready to go on stage. You're not, I mean, we all have an energy that we want to perform well, but like to really notice when somebody is feeling nerves and feeling nervous and not in this place of confidence and calm before it's I think that when people feel that and understand that it's okay to be nervous. In fact, all that nervous means is that you care about the results and the people you're going to impact. That's all nervous really means. And it's how you direct and utilize that energy when you get out there to wherever your stage is and perform. That's what matters with the energy. And I saw you take that energy and that nervousness and build it into inspiration for people and impact. And yeah, no doubt there was change in people's lives, and that impact is going to ripple out over the next year for people in that room.
So I guess my final thought is that success is a team sport. There's all these legends of people going out and becoming self-made and just going out and conquering the world. But behind the scenes, it's never something you just can't do it alone. You can't sustain the energy, the drive, the confidence, the knowledge, the capability. You can't do it alone. I've seen this over and over. And that's why I built these communities. I built them, it was very self-serving. I built them because I knew I needed a community, and I kept on outgrowing communities that I found. And so I said, I'm just going to do this myself. Because, for the first couple of years of Product Launch Formula, first 3 years, no, first 5 years, there was no community element to it. And I was like, I need a community to grow where looks like this is all going, where this industry is going, where this PLF is going, where my business is going, where I'm going. To continue to grow, I need a community. So I started in 2010. That was when Plat Plus started. So I started building these communities, and now I have these 3 communities that sustain me. And by the way, they also sustain each other, because success is a team sport.
Yeah, I know I heard that so much from so many people. I heard it over and over at the masterminds, including from you, Jeff, but it just um, how necessary it is to get back into a community, to regularly be surrounded by people who understand that unique entrepreneurial journey. And not just understand it from like, oh yeah, I can imagine how that could be challenging. But surrounding yourself with the people who, if you're planning on doing $100,000 launch and you do a $50,000 launch, who understand like, oh, okay, that could be devastating. And okay, how do you pivot? How do you turn that into something good? And how do you move on from there? Versus someone who's like, oh yeah, you still made $50,000, or the other way around. The people who can inspire you with new ideas or new ways of doing things, or who can celebrate a big win with you. I heard it so much from these folks about how having these 3 times a year where they get together in person with other people who are on the same path with them, just how important that is. And how, when they end up even missing one meeting, how just, I don't know, weird of a place they can go to at times, just not having that check-in and that refuel with ideas and inspiration and excitement. And so, people listening, I would just say, whatever that means to you, it's just so important to find those groups of people who are on a similar journey with you, and to have some sort of way that you can surround yourself with that energy if not every day, then on a regular basis.
Yeah, go find your people.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Launch family, thank you again for listening. This has been another conversation, and we hope that it has inspired you to dare to launch.